Hey you guys, and welcome to the first, is it the first? Welcome to this exclusive video for the canning class waitlist. Now, I am filming the canning class right now. I'm having so much fun. Some of the recipes that I'm filming are roasted tomato soup. We've got so many great things, and I'm just super excited to get to share them all with you guys. So keep your calendar marked for mid-August is when this class is going to come out. Rain or shine, we're crossing our fingers. We're working hard to make it happen. But you guys are going to have the opportunity mid-August, regardless of whatever else is going on, to get it at the best price that it will ever be offered at. We're never going to drop it to this price again, and it's just because you're here with us through the filming process. So one of the first things, let's tackle first things first. I keep getting asked a question that sometimes surprises me, and it reminds me to start all the way back at the beginning. And so I want to start all the way back at the beginning with you guys here at the waitlist. And the question that I get asked almost most often about canning is, where should I buy my jars? This is a great question. I love this question. And so I took a little field trip to my local antique store to look at some jars with you guys. So here we go. So when you're at either a yard sale or you're at an antique store and you're looking for jars, one of my number one tips is to make sure that you know the price of your new jars. Because oftentimes antique jars have a lot of value aside from just their canning functional value. So these are totally useful, they're totally usable, but they can also often cost quite a bit more. Now, one thing is though that they were often made from much thicker glass that's much more durable. So a lot of times these old jars have lasted me way past generations of new jars. You do have to be aware of several things, whether you're looking at a modern jar or an antique jar, if you're looking at wanting to be able to use it for actual canning. One is the lids. Now, these old zinc lids are no longer usable. They're not, you can't actually can with them. But for a long time, these rings have been standardized. So my biggest trick is to make sure you have regular rings with you so you can check out and make sure that the rings will fit on there properly. The other thing that you need to be sure is you need to look carefully for any chipping around the edges. And this one does have a little bit of rough chipping, and so you would not want to use this for canning. It'd be great for dry storage or something where you're not actually sealing the jars. But the chipping right in here and the rough edges can make your jars not seal properly. So you would not want to use that. Another thing that you want to look for is you want to look really carefully for any hairline type cracks. And you can thunk it. You'll know it'll have a completely different sound if there's little cracks in it. And just look all the way around and be sure that the bottom is in good shape. If it passes all of those tests for you, then you could probably use it. Now, it's good to know that these old jars with the bales on them like that, while they're a lot of fun and they're good for a lot of things around the homestead, they are not good for modern canning. They're not safe. You can't use them like that. Well, I just love going antique shopping, and so that was a lot of fun. Now, one of the number one things that I really want you guys to think about when we're talking about choosing jars is to think about what price you can get jars at your local big box store or your hardware store. What's the best price that you're going to find this season for jars? Now, oftentimes wide mouth jars and regular jars are different price. A lot of times the wide mouth are a lot more expensive. For me, I just need to have one number in my head. If I start getting too many numbers, then I won't ever remember it. And so I kind of just find I'm happy with any jar that I can buy for this price or less number by looking at the advertisements from my local stores where I can expect to get the best prices from. A lot of times in my area, that's the hardware store. The local small hardware store will have great sales on their canning jars. So then I know once I get that number in my head, this year it's 75 cents. Any jar that I can find for less than 75 cents is a good deal, whether it's brand new or it's used. So once I have that information, when I go to the thrift store, when I go to yard sales, when I go to the antique store, I can really think about that price to know whether the deal I'm getting is good or not. Now, if so, and I've had this happen a lot, I've found jars that are in good shape, but they're really dirty. Like they've been sitting in somebody's shed for years and they're extremely dirty. I really take that into consideration when I'm thinking about the price, because that's going to take a lot of extra work to get those jars cleaned up and ready to use. Sometimes it can take half an hour of scrubbing per jar between rinses and scrubbing and boiling. And so that jar has got to be really, really cheap before I'm going to consider it if it's that dirty. I'd rather get a brand new one and not do the work. But let's say you got a great jar, a great deal on some used jars, and either they're really dirty or maybe they're just not brand new and you're bringing them home. And this is going to hold true if it's your own jar and maybe it's been in storage and it's a little dusty, a little dirty when you bring it up to use it. What you're going to want to do is wash that jar in hot, soapy water. Get it as clean as you can. And I go ahead and put that into hot boiling water. Make sure it's filled all the way up. And I add a couple of cups of white distilled vinegar to that water. And then I go ahead and boil that for about 10 to 15 minutes. As long as it's gotten over 10 minutes, I'm not too worried about it. Once I pull that out, then I know that that jar has been sterilized, it's in good shape, and it's gonna be ready to use next time I need it. At which point, when I'm ready to can with it, I again wash it in hot soapy water, but it doesn't need to be sterilized, it's ready to go. Now, if you find a jar that's already in your collection that has a nick or a chip around the rim when you're checking your jars, you know, you're really going to want to do yourself a favor and just get rid of it. If it's a really old jar, then go ahead and repurpose it for some sort of dry storage, which a jar with a nick in the rim is just fine for dry storage of something. Maybe you have some herbs you want to store in it, or maybe you have a grain that you want to store in it, and that's just fine. The problem is that those things often work their way back into the jar supply, and the next thing you know, you're canning with it and you have a lid that doesn't properly seal. That gets really frustrating. I found that the best thing to do in that circumstance is just toss the jar that has the chip and use a jar without a chip for your dry storage also. Okay, I'll see you guys next week. Boy, we've got a lot of fun things on this wait list coming up. We've got recipes coming out that people have been asking for. I've got some teaching previews coming out where you get to actually see a lesson or two inside the coming class. So keep your eyes on your inbox for these special waitlist exclusive videos, and we'll see you guys really soon.